the same week that Amnesty International published a report highlighting human rights abuses in Qatar, the European Parliament voiced its own concerns about poor living and working conditions for migrants in the country. They also had a special mention for FIFA, urging the world's football governing body to do more to combat the problem ahead of the Games. This month's plenary session in Strasbourg saw the EU join worldwide controversy over Qatar's treatment of migrants employed by construction companies to build up the country's infrastructure in preparation for the 2020 World Cup Games. An EU report approved by parliamentarians alleges slave-like conditions for workers in the country, many who've traveled from countries like India, Bangladesh and Nepal to earn a living for their families back home.
They cannot change the employee because they have this sponsor system. They don't get enough free drinking water. The accommodation is overcrowded. And sometimes they pay a lot of money to those who bring them to Qatar and then have to work to pay it back. So these are human rights violations which can be changed by the Qatari government.
But also with added pressure from football's governing body FIFA, according to EU Economics Commissioner Olli Rehn.
I see this as a litmus test for the FIFA and for the European representatives in the FIFA. It is indeed essential that the FIFA aims at fair play, not only on the football field, but also on the construction sites and in the working conditions of migrant workers.
Shortly after the Parliament report, FIFA's president Sepp Blatter called labor conditions in Qatar unacceptable. The Qatari government has also pledged changes will be made, but members of Parliament hope that even 9 years ahead of the Games, improvements will start to show.
It's a human rights resolution. It has less of a standing in the Parliament, indicating really where human rights stands in the EU list of priorities. But I still think it's important because it raises public awareness internationally. That helps to create international political pressure on Qatar. It's another voice on the government.
Amid even fiercer calls for a boycott of the sporting event from some MEPs, it's hoped the EU resolution will add pressure, no matter how soft. Though a full-on boycott of the World Cup isn't likely, the European Parliament is stepping up pressure on Qatari authorities to take visible corrective steps. Sandra Gottman for JN1 in Brussels.